Hello, welcome to the Richmond, California Out of Darkness Community Walk virtual program. My name's Ryan D. Lopez, one of the organizers for our community and the surrounding communities for our neighbors and friends. Before we get started, I'd like to first acknowledge that the land that we sit on and have the privilege of interacting with is that of the Ohlone people. That said, I'd also like to recognize the many people that have made many sacrifices for us to enjoy this space, and especially during this pandemic, the many people who have made sacrifices for us to still go on about life and try and live despite the many nuances and struggles that we're all dealing with. And this is just my gentle reminder to all of you that you are not alone. That said, let's get it going, let's get started. My name's Ryan D. Lopez, as I said earlier, and I'm very honored and humbled that I'm able to bring this inaugural event, and hopefully this could be a community staple for years to come. If you would love to get involved, please reach out and let's make magic happen. Let's save lives. Let's help prevent suicide. And let's help make sure our community knows that there are resources and support out there for mental health services. What you're about to hear pretty soon is a lineup of many great speakers from our community members who you may know, who may be your friend, neighbor, or even family members, who will be a bit vulnerable in sharing their own personal experiences with mental health, but also sharing insights on how they deal with that. We all understand that we've been going through a lot of struggle the past year and a half, and even prior to that. And so to bring this event to the city of Richmond is very beautiful. And I'm very honored, again, to be able to share this with all of you, and hopefully we can make this much bigger. That said, my personal reason for starting this is that I had actually lost a loved one to suicide. He was my best friend. His name was Mark Nauman. He had passed in 2010, not that far from Barrett Avenue. And even though it's been over a decade, it's still very, very difficult to process. Every year is a new year for healing and grieving and to improve upon reflections. And I share this moment of vulnerability to let you all know that whatever you may be dealing with or whatever you may have survived or encounter, again, you are not alone. That we're all in this together, and that talking does save lives. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to someone who maybe you haven't been talking to in a while and just check up on them. Before we get into the programming of hearing other folks from our community speak, I just want to give a shout out to our community members who fundraise quite well as of this recording. Shout out to Kelly Schultz, Sheila Garretts, Matt Ashmore, Lisa Aiken, shout out to Team Jason, Team Rich City, Team Richmond, Team Metas. You all did phenomenal, and I'm really, really proud of all of you for amplifying the message that we can help prevent suicide and we can help bring resources to our community. Without further ado, let's get into it.
I'm Celia Nicole. I am a person who has a mental illness and is therefore really passionate about mental health. I am also a musician and an up-and-coming video editor. I'm new at it, but I'm doing things. And I just love people. I love art, and I love helping out in my community. I think it's really important for communities in general, but especially our community, to have mental health services, and especially mental health services for people of color, because most of our community is people of color. And it would also be nice if, you know, we had mental health teams that were also people of color. I know, like, I've been struggling with my psych team, who is all white, and there's just some things like they don't understand. There's some things that you just can't talk to them about because they haven't experienced what we experienced. And I know a lot of people too who are also like left in the dark in terms of, you know, mental health care. which is really sad and it's really frustrating, because people want help, but people can't necessarily get the help they need, whether it's like a financial issue or, not the right therapist, or, they don't have access to medications, or maybe they have to pay for medications out of pocket, and that can get really expensive, and even just therapy itself can get expensive. But I feel like that should be a priority for the community, because there's a lot of healing that we have to do. There's a lot of trauma that all of us have been through, whether it's, trauma through poverty, or, we've trauma through like police experiences, or even trauma within, our families, or other people, our peers. Like there's a lot of things that we need to get worked out. And it would be great if we had the services to be able to, work these things out, so that we can be a more positive community, so we can be a more healed community, and a more whole community. And not to say that, we aren't healing and we're not growing and we're not, connecting, because we are, and we're all doing the best we can with what we have, but what we have is not enough. And we can only help ourselves, so much. Like I've struggled my whole life with mental health issues. I have several mental illnesses that really affect my life, that I need to be medicated for, so that I can be normal, or, be appropriate for society. And I feel blessed, that I am able to at least have that cure with medication, even if, I don't have a therapist right now. But I know so many people that are struggling, without either medication or therapy, or whatever it is that they need. Sorry. It's frustrating and it's heartbreaking to not have the help that we need and that we want. It's not that we don't want it. We do want the help. And I think it's so important that we get that help, that we get that support. Advice for self-care. Interesting. I just posted about that on my story this morning. I didn't even know you were going to ask that. But I gave a little life pro tip. It's like, when you're not doing well mentally, what works for me at least sometimes, and I did that this morning getting ready, is just, getting dressed up, putting on makeup. Like, I haven't worn makeup throughout all of Corona, and today I was like, you know what, I need to feel good, or at least look good, and when you look good, you feel good, at least a little bit. Even self-care is even like giving into your cravings. If you want to eat a whole pizza, eat it. Like, it's okay. Your body needs to be fed, and that's all that matters. Self-care is also, I don't know, watching TV, taking a day off at work, taking a mental health day, taking care of yourself when you're sick, going out in nature. It's so many things. And it's the little things that's important too. It doesn't have to be a whole, I have to go to the spa and spend money. It doesn't have to be that. It could be having wine with friends, or even just sitting in silence with your thoughts sometimes, because that's important and that's needed. And I know it's scary sometimes to be alone with yourself, but it's important. It's important to get to know yourself, and I consider that self-care as well. Anything can be self-care. If it was just getting out of bed, brushing your teeth, like that's an accomplishment. and for some people that's hard to do, and I understand that, but paying attention to the little things, you know. I got up this morning, I drank water, or I ate, or I was on Instagram for an hour because I wanted to, you know, like that's all self-care, and you shouldn't feel guilty for giving in to your pleasures, you know, in life. Because that's important. Self-care is the most important thing, I feel like. So just keeping in mind, you know, the little things are, you know, can be the big things.
My name is TJ Sykes. I'm from Richmond, California, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about why mental health is important in our neighborhood, especially coming from a predominantly black and brown neighborhood. Why I think it is important is because a lot of us don't have safe spaces to talk about different traumatic experiences that we've been through or that we've seen. And so for me, therapy was important to engage in at a young age. My first experience with therapy was at the age of 10 when my mom passed away, and it was a group therapy experience, and that experience really shaped the rest of my life. It really helped me see that it was other people in the world that was experiencing similar trauma as I was, and it gave me a space to be around young folks that was in a similar age range as me that could express that the things that we was going through, and just, you know, really trying to figure out what death mean and how do we process that at that young age. And so as I grew up, I went back to therapy also as an adult, and that was helpful to process other things that I was going through as a young adult. And so one thing that's important though for us in these different communities is that everybody don't have financial access to those resources. And so some of the tools that I use outside of therapy is like reading, taking walks, having conversations with people that are healthy, that can help me elevate in different areas, having mentors in different aspects of my life. Like, I'm a poet, so I have a poetry mentor. I dabble in comedy, so I have a comedy mentor. I'm a published author, so I have a group of different published authors that I can talk to about things like that. I do jigsaw puzzles, I ride bikes, I take walks by the water, I go on hikes, and also just really think about the things that brought me joy as a kid and why I stopped doing those things, and how can I incorporate those things back into my life now. So yeah, that's just some of the ways that I incorporate different activities to elevate my mental health. I would say my closing remarks would be that any thoughts, any emotions, any feelings that come up for you in your life, they're all real, they're all valid. And one thing about them is that they don't have to stay there forever. Like, you can experience them and they can leave if you allow them to. And so for me, myself, I have some thoughts that come to my mind. I have some emotions that I might not want to experience or I might not want to deal with, but I acknowledge them and I let them flow.
My name is Najari Smith. I live here in Richmond. I work in Richmond. And it's very much the work that I do is a part of my mental health. The love that I give the community gives back to me. There is a such thing as like getting too caught up in the things that are happening and the work that you're doing that you don't even see how the good that you're creating. You know, you can, and I've done it, where I see the beauty that everybody else is producing in the world, and I don't see what I'm doing or how I'm a part of that. You know, put on a part of that beauty that we're producing. I find, little known is that I've been struggling with mental health since I was, as long as I can remember, ever since I started school, back in like kindergarten age. Started popping up around preschool, if I really think back. And I've had to cope with that continuously all my life. I get seasonally depressed, so in the winter times it's really difficult for me, particularly with like, the holidays, and you're supposed to be happy, and it's like Christmas and Halloween, and I spent the greater part of my life not really even being about all that stuff. But I learned to embrace it, not so much embrace that, but embrace being around people. And we live in a society where there is so much built around productivity, and, with workload and work being one of the places where you spend most of your life at, it's like, when do you have time for friends and family? You actually have to like intentionally create that time. And there's something magical that happens when you're interested in somebody else's life. You could just have that conversation about who they are and what are they going through, and then, they can lend the ear while you share. And it's medicine. Community is medicine. The village is medicine. I've had to do my own internal work around finding something that's consistent and, personal for me, and that's been this everyday ride thing that I've been doing, where I just make sure with 24 hours in a day that I make sure that I use 1 hour at least to just getting on my bike and riding. So I don't know what everybody's thing is. If it's drawing, try drawing for at least 1 hour a day. If it's working on puzzles, work on that for 1 hour a day. Try to do something that's creative for you, that nourishes your physical, mental, spiritual health. I get that from chopping it up with family, and I'm really accessible because I'm right here in the shop, so people can catch me 6 days a week and at Unity Park on Sundays. For me, I'll be pretty candid in saying that I actually need some time to just disconnect and be able to inspect myself and see what's going on in my heart and in my head and in my body, so that I can reconnect with myself, particularly with the amount of community work that I do. This world is crazy, and the industrialization of this world makes it so that people are treated like robots. It's not natural, it's not healthy, and of course it's going to have an effect on our mental health. Social media can be constructive, but it could also be really destructive. Seeing the fabulousness of everybody else's life and wanting to figure out, where do you fit in? I want you to know that everything you are doing is a part of where you fit in. That in the glorious puzzle of our lives, every single piece is important. And if a piece was missing, we could not make the whole puzzle. You are important. What I want to see on your social media page, or, whenever you were walking down the block and you saw that butterfly floating through the sky, or when you caught that insect just going about his business, take your phone out and capture that and talk about how it affects you and how you feel about it. I want to see that raw emotion, not just the joy, but also the sadness. Let's embrace every piece of who we are. Our joy, our happiness, our sadness, our anger, our disappointment, all of that stuff are aspects of who we are. And we don't want to disconnect one aspect from the other aspect. I want the whole you, and I want you to see the whole me. I would say to the city of Richmond, in the realm of mental health, in the realm of our community and our city and our village and the neighborhoods and parks and places that are contained within our city, that when I think of it in reflection of just humanity, as a city, don't look so much outside of yourself for things that that we give our attention to. Let's nurture the things that are inside of us as a city. We are rich in creativity. We are rich in urban ingenuity. We are rich in the village and in the families and friends and individuals right here in our city. And we need you to invest in us so that our mental health is on point. You know, invest in our parks, our places, our people first. And if you're not doing that, you're contributing to the mental health decline, the physical health decline, the spiritual and community health decline. If you are contributing to the health and mental and physical well-being of our people, then everything else will elevate from there. You water the grass right here in our backyard and watch how green it can get. It's fertile, trust.
I'm Kat Ramos. I'm a mother and community organizer. And gosh, there's so many reasons why mental health is an important thing for us to talk about and to resource. And I guess I'll start with me, right? I grew up in a household where I didn't have a lot of support. And so I was suicidal at 11 and again at 15. And I left my house at 17. And I think now being decades older, I'm still catching up in a lot of ways in how I can heal from all of these experiences I've had. I've survived, but some of the scars are still standing and they've impacted me. And had I had consistency in care, had I had therapy consistently, I think I would be in a different place mentally and emotionally. That might have fostered a different type of person or someone who would be more embedded in community and helping the community even more than I think that I am right now. Maybe there's a bigger impact that I could have had. And maybe some of the harms that I've caused to other people wouldn't happen if I had that kind of help. And I think while I've done a lot of work towards that, it definitely would have been beneficial to have access. And I've seen people die. I mourn some friends that are gone. And I wish there was more around for them. I know children that suffered way too much before they were 18. And had they had some consistent care, had it been resourced and accessible to them, they wouldn't be making all of these alternative bad habit decisions right now because it's all they have access to. And so, yeah, I think mental health and resourcing that is super important for that reason. One very simple thing, I think, which I think is super accessible, is pausing to breathe, right? And even that, right? It's super accessible, but it's also very difficult here in Richmond because some of us have respiratory issues because of the environment that we live in. So I think us being in a space where we can be seen and acknowledged is base level, right? So having a space where we can tell our stories, having a space where if we need to hydrate or if we need to just come into, finding resources, a filter, masks, information, right? And then finding a way to connect back with the elements, right? Going towards water, grabbing soil, hugging trees, one of my favorite things to do. And I feel like the more opportunities we take to connect with the land and to connect with the elements, we can deeply connect within ourselves. And I think that that's what trauma And mental illness does, it disconnects us from our bodies, and it disconnects us from that connection to like the energy of things. And so we can find a body of water. We can go find the farm now. We can go into different spaces and make them ourselves. And then breathe. I do yoga. I do my breathing exercises. I constantly surround myself with things to put energy into. And then I find laughter and music and try to be around people that make me feel good. And I think that when we have a combination of those things, it changes a lot. So, yeah. I want everyone to think about our lives as fluid as possible, right? What's happening right now in this moment is not going to be our existence tomorrow or even later on today. And so we just need to get by right now. And there's a lot of different things happening that are going to help us get by right now. We just have to tap in. And so pausing and breathing and getting by the right now by finding people that we love is really like the thing, right? And so I think the best way to do that and the best way to find that hope every day is to have that like moment of being grateful, that moment of being grateful for that breath, that moment of being grateful for the next moment, because the next moment can change something. And breathing through this moment that's uncomfortable is all you have to think about getting through. And then in those little spaces after that, there's hope.
Hi, my name is Danny Campathon. I'm the Richmond community organizer for the Asia Pacific Environmental Network. Born and raised in North Richmond, California. Currently live in San Pablo. Graduate Richmond High, class 2012. And yeah, the reason why mental health is important to me is because, you know, when I think about my upbringing and all the things that I've seen throughout my life, you know, I lived in North Richmond, which is a really diverse place, mainly with a lot of black folks, a lot of people from Central and South America, and of course Laotian folks, people that all came to this country either by displacement, war, slavery, and all these things, trying to search for a better life in like this new land. And I think throughout that time, it's like I saw just how much trauma folks have gone through and the lives that they lived. You know, it was very rough trying to come into a new country or into a new world and rebuild your life from literally nothing. You know, my mom came here as from the refugee camp, I think in the late 80s. I was born in 1994, so what separated me from being born in a refugee camp was literally like a few years of life. And it's crazy to think about that these are my parents' lived experiences, and all that they've tried to do in this world is like try to figure out how to navigate and survive, and they instill that into, you know, me, my siblings, and whatever it may be. But in turn, it's like a lot of things that they need to survive is actually very, what's the word for it? It became very toxic and problematic to like the growth of children. You know, for them in Laos to speak out against the government, talk about your problems or any of those things could get you killed. That was the most simple way to put it. You speak out against the government, a higher power, whatever it may be, you will be murdered or you would be put inside a re-education camp. And for them, it's like they had that fear and that trauma instilled in them. So growing up as a kid, it's like, it was always like, stay out the way, don't get into no trouble, don't do any of that, and don't talk to the police and nothing like that. Like basically there's no one that you could trust in this world. And the only people that you could try to seek refuge from is family. But even when your family can't give you that kind of refuge or whatever it may be, or that safety, you kind of get stuck in like a weird position. And I found that a lot with a lot of the kids on my block. For a lot of us, it's like we grew up with so much pain and trauma, whether it be through gun violence or losing people through so many different avenues. Like we grew up in such a crazy trauma-filled environment, and that broke something in us. We didn't really have the choice to be children. We didn't have the choice to be, you know, just normal kids that wanted to grow up and experience life. We had to grow up so quick and understand what it means to lose a loved one, either to violence or trauma, or what it's like to be raised by parents that have experienced nothing but trauma and pain. And they are now putting that onto us. Like, I know so many people that have gone through substance abuse and all those things and have like affected a family in so many different ways, in negative, horrible ways. And for us as kids, we had to try and navigate that as being like the future generation, the ones that are going to bring our parents out of poverty or any of those things. But when all that pressure is put onto a generation, it breaks you in so many ways. I know for myself, I got immersed in a lot of the violence that, myself growing up. And when I think about it, it's like when I got in trouble back in middle school, got put on probation, all those things, they sent me to a therapist, and it was my first time ever thinking about my mental health and whatnot. And it was hard to connect with this individual that was not from my community, did not look like me, did not have the same lived experience as me. And while I told them like the things that I've gone through in life, there was just this look of shock and no real way to connect. And it was hard because it's just like, all right, well, I've laid everything out there and I have no way to validate my feelings or anything that I've gone through. The only thing that you could tell me is that, that my lived experiences were rough and horrible. And I'm looking at this individual like, well, what was the point of this? Like, you just gonna tell like the police department what I've done in my life, all these things, am I just gonna get into more trouble? And it's like a very deep mistrust of like all these systems that are supposed to help us. And it's hard because it's like, for us as a generation, we've recognized this, and for the people that had the capacity to try and help others with their mental health, they now have to take on that emotional labor and load to try and heal a generation of kids that have been like gone through so much trauma, raised by people that have gone through trauma. And it's this constant cycle of trying to heal like our current generations, but also the ones that came before us. I feel like we've been put in a situation where it's like we've caused so much trauma and harm to each other, and now it's this time to try and heal one another whilst trying to survive under capitalism. And I think that's one of the most difficult parts, is that for a lot of people, they can't afford the time to take care of their mental health. I know this was very true for a lot of people, and it was true for me for a long time. I think luckily though, I did reach a point in my life where I was able to save enough funds, relax for a little bit, and really focus on myself, which was a blessing. I took a few months out, started hiking a lot, and started really connecting with myself really through the land and just being able to see the world in a much more beautiful light. I literally had to take myself out of the environment that I was in for my whole life and then change the whole scenery and make me believe that there is a better world out there, or at least help me envision what that world could look like. But yeah, that is why mental health is important to me and my community. A word of hope. I think the one thing I want to say is that we're strong and resilient when we come together. We will do everything that we can to take care of one another. We have survived this long, being displaced from our homelands, going through, all the traumas that we experience. We will come together. We will fight for justice, and we will make sure that we will never let one of our people fall through the cracks and succumb to the traumas of this world. I think that's something that I've seen a lot within my own generation, that we will not stand for injustice in any way, and we will do everything we can to support and help one another. So that's one thing that gives me a lot of hope, especially when I look to the youth who've are actually really quick with it and actually understand what it means to have mental health within your life, or at least take care of yourself. I know back then it was very difficult for a lot of people to open up about their mental health since there were so many stigmas and taboos about it. And I'm glad that that narrative is shifting and changing in so many ways culturally across so many different folks. And I think that's something that's beautiful. I can definitely see the next generation being the one that could really break that chain of, these stigmas around mental health, whether they be, what's the word for it? I was gonna say negative or positive, but yeah, they will be the ones to actually break that chain, I believe. As long as we continue on this path and continue bringing resources to each other, especially during this time when you have so many young professionals that are going into the mental health field and really recognizing that we need culturally relevant ways to give healing and therapy to our people. Folks that can actually connect with people in the issues, whether it be the immigrant or refugee experience, or what it just means to grow up Black in the hood,
Hi, it's Dr. Christine Moutier, Chief Medical Officer at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for participating in our Out of the Darkness walks. You are making such a difference. By doing so, you are raising awareness. You're being part of the movement that includes all of us, experts, people with lived experience, people with loss, and many of us are all of the above. And so I just can't thank you enough. And I want to let you know that your efforts are the reason that we are the leading private funder of all suicide prevention related research. And right now we have a priority on technology and innovation in our research grants, as well as diversity. We also have our continued priority on supporting research that relates to the loss and healing experience of suicide loss survivors. Because of your involvement, we are able to develop new programs, prevention programs, as well as loss and healing programs. And in the workplace arena in the world, suddenly there is such an interest in suicide prevention. And so we are able to bring our interactive screening program to more workplaces, health systems, and colleges and universities. So thank you again so very much. Your advocacy, your involvement is it keeps us all going. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm part of the Project 2025 team here at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Thank you for walking to bring suicide out of the darkness.
Hello, my name is Tandra. I am also part of Project 2025 team, and thank you for your continued support of our Out of the Darkness walk and your support for AFSP.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this amazing journey. My name is Renee Cruz, and I'm the Vice President of AFSP's Project 2025. We want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for walking to bring suicide out of the darkness. Your courage and generosity are truly helping the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. Thanks to walkers like you and the generous donors who have contributed to creating a world that's smart about mental health. We have set a bold goal to reduce the rate of suicide in the United States 20% by the year 2025. We'll reach our goal by working on the 4 strategies and the 4 focus areas, which are firearms, healthcare strategies, emergency departments, and correction systems.
As the Director of Healthcare Systems Initiative, I want to thank all of our healthcare workers who have participated in our walks. We know that your jobs have been especially difficult due to the pandemic, but we are encouraged by the continued progress that is being made to identify individuals at risk and get them the help they need when they need it most.
Project 2025 is all about finding ways for individuals and organizations in the 4 focus areas to help support and accelerate the adoption of evidence-based strategies that we know help save lives. We would be honored to connect with you, so we hope you'll visit us at project2025.afsp.org or use a mobile device and scan the QR code on your screen now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
That was really beautiful to hear from all our folks, Najari, Kat, TJ, Celia, Denny, all amazing advocates and folks within our community. And we hope to hear from many more in the future. And maybe you could share your story. Again, thank you all for participating and being involved. We can't wait to see you next year and see how this can grow. There is always hope. There's always much more that we can do to improve, and that is possible through community building, capacity building, which means you, please come join us, come see what more magic we can make happen to help save lives. Again, as you heard from others on how to find alternative ways to deal with mental health and stress, definitely check out afsp.org, find ways that, one, you can get involved, or donate, or just find the correct resources or appropriate resources that you need, whether it's for yourself or someone close to you. The resources are out there, and if you want to bring those resources into your school, into your workplace, etc., whatever it may be, reach out to the AFSP San Francisco Bay Area chapter. They're here to help, they're here to provide. Thank you.